It is game week, Bears fans, as the Bears take on the Tennessee Titans here in just 5 days. If you're excited for Bears football to be back, hit that thumbs up icon and like this video. We're shooting for 1,500 likes on today's show. My name is Harrison Graham. This is Chicago Bears Now. The Bears have released their depth chart for week one against the Tennessee Titans. They call it an unofficial depth chart technically, but I still think there are plenty of things to analyze and take away here at some key positions. So that's what we're going to do on today's show. And of course, the Bears opener is this Sunday, 12 o'clock Central Time, against the Titans at Soldier Field. We, of course, will be live for a watch party, so be sure to join us for that. All right, let's get to my 5 takeaways that I'm focusing on here. And the first one is the Ryan Bates center experiment over? It's hard to say for sure, but based on the initial depth chart release, Bates was listed as the backup left guard behind Tevin Jenkins. Doug Kramer is the backup center to Coleman Shelton. Bill Murray, the backup right guard to Nate Davis. And I think there's a lot of different things you could analyze from this. One, Doug Kramer is really only a center, so they might have just listed Bates as a guard because he's played guard, whereas Kramer's not going to play guard for this team unless absolutely necessary. But you could also look at this and say, hey, due to Ryan Bates' injury during training camp, maybe, one, Coleman Shelton has taken the center job. He is going to start at center in week one, and that's his job to lose at this point in time. And two, I do wonder, since Bates has played more guard, and maybe there's a question about Nate Davis, as he missed a lot of camp and only had a few snaps in the preseason, maybe they're keeping Bates flexible to plug in at right guard if needed. I know Bill Murray's listed as the backup right guard, but I feel pretty confident in saying Ryan Bates would plug in before Bill Murray. And let's face it, Tevin Jenkins is not going to be benched at any point this season. So there's kind of a few different angles there. But I think also Doug Kramer had a good preseason. So maybe he's just the backup center at this point, and Bates is more of your top backup guard. Grade the week one starting offensive line of Braxton Jones, Tevin Jenkins, Coleman Shelton, Nate Davis, and Darnell Wright. A, B, C, D, or F. I'd go B-. I think it's good to solid. I think center and right guard are question marks still, but I think you feel pretty good about the tackles. Maybe not incredible, but pretty good with Wright and Jones. And then I think Tevin Jenkins is one of the best guards in the NFL. So B- with certainly a chance to move up, but also move down if that interior struggles a bit. All right, let's talk Austin Booker here, as I think we kind of knew this already, but I think the depth chart listings kind of prove that he is firmly in the rotation at this point. Remember what Matt Eberflus said after they traded for Darrell Taylor opposite of Montez Sweat. They're going to rotate a lot. Now, Sweat will obviously rotate out some as well. He's not going to play every snap. But he was listed, Austin Booker, as DeMarcus Walker's backup, not Montez Sweat's. Now, he played on that side of the defensive line mostly in the preseason, so it could just be, a side of the line. But I think it's significant for a couple of reasons. One, we know Walker is going to kick inside some on pass down, so that would lead one to believe that Booker's going to be in on those clear pass down opportunities. And two, they could have listed Darrell Taylor over there. They listed him on the other side. Now, again, it's unofficial. They got to write names on a piece of paper. You don't want to make too much of it, but the bottom line is I expect Austin Booker to get looks. I think he's going to get snaps on the rotation at defensive line and at that edge position, and I'd be surprised if he's not a factor as soon as week one in terms of the snap totals. And also, he's listed ahead of Dominique Robinson and Daniel Hardy, so he's already ahead of those guys. Today's episode of Chicago Bears Now is sponsored by Z Biotics. I may not drink as much as I used to, but when I do, I typically don't bounce back as well the next day as I once did. That has all changed now that I have found Z Biotics Pre-Alcohol. Pre-Alcohol is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Just remember to drink this probiotic before drinking alcohol. Drink responsibly and get a good night's sleep to feel your best tomorrow. I kept hearing about pre-alcohol and wondered what it was actually like. Now that I've tried it and used it for a while, including the night I watched my alma mater TCU get smoked in the national title game, I believe the hype, and I can attest to it. With this technology, they will release different products that have nothing to do with alcohol as well. So go to zbiotics.com/chatsports. Use code chatsports to get 15% off your first order. You can also scan the QR code on screen to get started today. That's code chatsports at zbiotics.com/chatsports for 15% off. The returners appear to be set, at least to start the year, as DeAndre Carter and Velus Jones Jr. will take on those duties. Velus is the kick returner. Carter is the punt returner. Now, technically, the depth chart listed Velus Jones Jr. or DeAndre Carter as the starting kick returner, and then DeAndre Carter or Velus Jones Jr. as the starting punt returner. But I don't think there's any scenario where Velus Jones returns punts. Why? He didn't return a single one in the preseason. I think Josh Blackwell is probably the backup punt returner. And now, could Carter get some kick return opportunities? Yes, but I think it's pretty clear Velus is your starting kick returner, Carter's your starting punt returner. And if that's the case on game days, it'll be interesting to see which players are inactive, because remember, they have to trim down to 48 on game days or whatever it is, 46, I forget. It's one of those numbers, but could Tyler Scott be inactive on game days if they only go 5 receivers because they need Carter and Velus Jones active, or do they carry all 6 and, is a guy like Roschon Johnson inactive early in the year? We'll see. They're going to have to make tough decisions there at some certain spots. All right, Karan Amagaji, is he the swing offensive tackle? With Larry Borum on short-term IR, that role is a bit of a mystery early on here. Obviously, you've got Matt Pryor, but I thought Pryor was better at guard in the preseason than he was at tackle. Amagaji listed as the backup left tackle. They've got Pryor on the right side, but we know he can play all 4 spots outside of center. I think my take is that early in the season, if Wright or Jones went out, I do think Matt Pryor would plug in. But I think by week 4, 5, 6, if they feel comfortable, Amagaji could kind of handle that role, and then Pryor is kind of just a plug-and-play guy at different spots. If a guard goes out, he could check in. If right tackle goes down and they don't want to play Amagaji on the right side, he could do that as well. But I think early on, just due to the lack of reps for Amagaji, the rookie, missed most of training camp, I would expect Pryor to take on that role. But I could see by, mid-October, Amagaji is your top backup tackle if they feel like he's progressing nicely. All right, one more takeaway here, but listen, if you want free Bears videos all season long, we're trying to get to 98,000 subscribers ASAP. We're 103 away. Let's get there by the end of the day. Hit that sub button, turn on notifications, and tonight we'll be going live after the final Bears Hard Knocks episode, so lock us in for that. And let's have a day. Appreciate you guys tuning in. All right, one more here. Velus Jones listed as a wide receiver, and I'm not going to make too much of this, but it's notable considering the second half of training camp and the last couple of preseason games, he played strictly running back, at least in the games. I'm sure in practice he got a few reps at receiver, but he is listed as a receiver on the depth chart. Now, I do not expect Velus to be split out wide and run a bunch of routes. Now, could he line up at receiver and be a gadget guy, or they use him in screens and jet sweeps, stuff like that? Sure, but if he's getting 10 snaps on offense, I would guess more than half of those are at running back. And they're going to use him either as a decoy or as a guy that they try to get on the perimeter. So I'm not making too much of this. I still think his future to have a chance to stick around and play a role offensively beyond special teams is at the running back position. But I think it's also a numbers game where, like, hey, he knows wide receiver. He can plug in a pinch if needed. But I think he is a clear wide receiver 6 behind your big 3, Tyler Scott, and even DeAndre Carter, who had some success a couple of years ago with the Chargers. All right, there you have it. My top Bears Week 1 depth chart takeaways as they get ready to take on the Titans at Soldier Field this Sunday. Get your score predictions in. We're going to be asking you guys all week long, Bears, Titans, who you have winning, and what is the final score going to be. Go ahead and let me know. And subscribe. We'll have another video later, plus Hard Knocks tonight. So lock us in. Bear down.